to be educated, but I'm so frustrated.
All right, you saw it. Man, I tell you what, we better get into something big tonight. And it's not your ordinary story that you've been hearing. This comes with a lot of detail. But the first thing I want to do before I get started, I want to let you know that the channel is going to roll out a new t-shirt. Take a look at it right here. And the thing about it is, if you're interested in ordering, hit me up at the contact information and I'll tell you what you need to get one. But the bigger thing is I'm going to give a free one to everybody who signs up for the channel membership by the end of this month. Now that's by the end of this month, which is right now we're in January. You sign up by the end of the month, I'm going to send you a free t-shirt. I don't know why. I just love my viewers and subscribers, and especially my members. Okay, but the big thing is we're talking about James.
Wait a minute, Mindset. I just looked at the thumbnail on this thing, man.
Well, the thing about it, man, is I know this is kind of controversial and stuff like that, but the story has to be told in the correct way where people can really understand what went down.
Man, you're about to shatter some dreams. Because if you're hinting that anybody but James Brown is king, these people are gonna hog-tie you, bruh.
No, man, no, don't get it twisted. James Brown is the greatest as far as I'm concerned with his performance level that he performs at. The way he dances and the stuff that he does, man, nobody gonna turn a party out like he did. James Brown was #1 in what he did. But the thing about it is how he got to that point is the big thing. Where he got a lot of that stuff from or allegedly got it from, that's the big thing. And that's what we're going to be talking about in detail, in depth.
Yeah, okay. I'm just going to ride out into the sunset. Brother, you are on your own.
I kind of thought that anyway. But let's get into the story about Joe Tex and James Brown and the time they had this big old beef, man. That big thing was big. Yeah, man, we are all used to music beefs now. Rap made diss tracks a sport. Biggie and Tupac turned rivalry into tragedy. And I know you must have heard about the Drake and Kendrick Lamar beef that led to a Super Bowl halftime diss of a lifetime. But what if I told you one of the most dangerous feuds in American music history happened decades earlier, long before hip-hop ever existed? No rappers, no rock stars, no social media, no interviews going viral, just two men, two egos, and a fight over who really owns soul music itself. This is the story of James Brown and Joe Tex. Now, most people know James Brown. The dancing, the screaming, the cape, the title Soul Brother #1. But Joe Tex is a name that does not get mentioned enough. And that is part of why this story matters. Joe Tex, born Joe Arrington Jr., came out of Rogers, Texas, added his state to his name, and made his way into the same Southern Chitlin circuit as James Brown. He was a preacher's son, a sharp writer, a talk singer before talk singing was a thing, and a man who knew how to work a crowd with humor, timing, and raw charisma. Before funk had a name, Joe Tex was already doing something different with rhythm, speech, and performance. And that is where the tension began. To understand the logic of this beef, you have to look at the receipts. Most people think James was the pioneer because he was the biggest.
And I took the Beatles and Mick Jagger with me. Mick Jagger was living on a truck. I had Jimi Hendrix playing guitar for me. I had Billy Preston on the organ, James Brown, and Joe Tex was my vocalist.
But the birth dates tell a different story. Little Richard was the architect, born in 1932. James Brown followed in 1933. Joe Tex was 2 years younger, born in 1935. But the man who held the key to it all was Little Willie John. He was the baby of the group, born in 1937, but he was the first true superstar of soul music. By 1955, Little Willie John was a sensation with his hit All Around the World. James Brown didn't have a hit until 1956, and back then, James was actually the opening act for Willie John. James worshipped him, but Joe Tex saw through it. Joe knew that James was a fan before he was a leader. One of the earliest sparks came from a song called Baby You're Right.
If you think I love you, well, baby, you're right.
Joe Tex wrote and recorded it first for Anna Records. James Brown later recorded his own version.
If you think I love you, well, baby, you're right.
Changed some lyrics and ended up with co-songwriting credit. That move alone created resentment because in that era, songwriting meant ownership, publishing, and long-term money. While Joe's version struggled, James took that same song to number 2 on the R&B charts. Joe Tex believed his work had been taken and repackaged, and James Brown believed he had improved it. That disagreement never settled, and it set the tone for everything that followed. Even the architect himself, Little Richard, weighed in on this. Richard famously claimed that James Brown was nothing more than a background singer who was always looking for something to borrow. To be clear, James actually stood in for Richard on several dates when Richard couldn't make it. Richard had bigger venues to do, so his management would have James impersonate him at hole-in-the-wall venues where people didn't know what Richard looked like. Literally wearing Richard's clothes and imitating his style just to keep the show going and meet obligations. Little Richard also said the lyrics for James's first big hit, Please, 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 came from the words Richard wrote on a paper napkin he had used. James took it, carried it around, and swore to make a song of it somehow.
Please, please, please.
And he did, while using the musical style of the Orioles' 1954 song, Baby Please.
Baby, please don't go. Baby, please don't go.
To those who were around back then, James was a master collector of ideas and a good marketer. In the late 1950s, James Brown was struggling to find a follow-up hit, but Joe Tex was the master creator of original ideas. Then there was the stage show. During those dry years, Joe Tex was in the trenches perfecting his microphone routines, wrapping the mic cord around parts of his body, kicking the stand, and catching it with his foot before it hit the floor. It was theatrical, controlled, and effective. Little Richard witnessed this and later confirmed that James didn't start doing those specific acrobatics until after he saw Joe Tex do them as an unknown opening act. Not long after, James Brown's stage act began incorporating similar elements, including the famous cape routine. Joe Tex took that personally. To him, this was not inspiration, this was imitation. James would later claim he got the cape idea from the wrestler Gorgeous George, but there were those who confirmed that Joe had done it way before, including members of Otis Redding's band and other reputable artists in their circles. Joe looked at James's sweating and screaming as nothing more than some kind of a strip club act, lacking the dignity of a true music artist. Things turned from professional to personal when a lady named B. Ford entered the picture. B. Ford was Joe Tex's former wife and a background singer. The two divorced in 1959, as she later became romantically involved with James Brown in 1960 and even recorded with him. They weaponized the duet, You've Got the Power.
I'm leaving you, darling, and
throwing it in Joe's face as a public middle finger to his marriage. James and B even had a son together in 1960, naming him Darryl Brown. By the way, Darryl later grew up to play guitar in James's band, the final years of Brown's life. Man, in a world where pride and masculinity were already on edge, this poured gasoline on the fire. James eventually grew tired of B, and reportedly sent Joe Tex a letter that essentially said, I am done with her, you can have her back now. Joe Tex did not take that sitting down. He responded with a song called You Keep Her.
James, I got your letter. It came to me today.
Where he actually calls James out by name in the first verse.
But I don't want her that way, so you keep her.
It was one of the first true name-drop diss tracks in history. From that point forward, this was no longer just about music. Joe Tex began openly challenging James Brown's self-appointed title as Soul Brother #1. Tex argued that the real pioneer was Little Willie John, and he made sure people heard that argument. Joe even made a point to visit the family of Willie John while he was serving time in the Ohio State Penitentiary for manslaughter. Joe wanted the world to know he was supporting the real king, while James was just wearing a crown he didn't earn. At one point, Joe Tex even had the words, "The New Soul Brother #1" painted on his tour bus. He would drive that bus into towns one day before James was scheduled to play, parking it right in front of the venue to get inside James's head. That was not subtle. That was a direct shot. But the most infamous moment came in Macon, Georgia in the early 1960s. At a homecoming show for James Brown, where both artists were to perform, Joe was the opening act. But Joe Tex decided to humiliate him on his own turf. He came out draped in a ratty, torn, dirty blanket instead of a velvet cape. He fell to his knees, faking a back injury, and mocked the famous routine right in front of a live audience. Witnesses said the crowd loved it. James Brown definitely did not. James Brown was reportedly incensed by the performance in front of his people. So, later that night, Brown followed Tex to an after-hours juke joint called Club 15, where Otis Redding and the Pine Toppers were performing. Witnesses, including guitarist Johnny Jenkins, claimed Brown arrived with shotguns in hands and ready to turn the place out. James opened fire on the club in a blind rage. But the lead didn't just hit the building. The owner of Club 15 kept a pen of hogs right out back on the premises. As James sprayed the area, several people inside were hit by the buckshot, but he also ended up killing a few of the owner's prize pigs in the melee. While Otis Redding and his band had to hide behind the piano to avoid the path of the fire, Joe Tex reportedly scrambled out of a back window and vanished into the Georgia woods. He wasn't just losing a battle, he was running for his life. No charges ever stuck because reports say James's manager went around handing out $100 bills to every person hit and even paid the owner for his dead livestock to buy their silence. What matters is this: everyone involved believed the feud had crossed into real danger. This was not marketing, this was not manufactured drama, this was two men operating in a lawless industry on dangerous roads with real money and real pride on the line. But eventually, and fortunately, time cooled things down. Careers and focus shifted, and the music moved forward. James Brown was able to become a global icon.
Got them little skinny legs. You know that ain't no way to do.
Joe Tex continued recording, scoring a massive gold record with Skinny Legs and All in 1967. He followed that up in 1972 with the hit, I Gotcha. But right after that success, Joe made a radical move. He retired from the music business to join the Nation of Islam. He changed his name to Joseph Haziez and became a traveling minister for the organization. He traded the stage for the pulpit, but even after finding his faith, the competitive edge never left him. He eventually returned to music for a huge comeback in 1977 with this hit. Ain't gonna bump no more with no big fat woman. This is really the song that I remember Joe by from my younger days. But even then, Joe never took back his claim that he was the better singer. But like everything in life, the beef had to come to an official end. Unfortunately, Joe Tex died young, at age 49, and of a heart attack in 1982. James Brown lived much longer, eventually passing away from congestive heart failure and pneumonia on Christmas Day in 2006. They never truly reconciled, and that is the point. Now, Beatrice Ford Stokes, after a marriage, she died December 22, 2009, at the age of 75. This feud shows us something important about how music history gets written. It is not always about who was first. It is about who the industry chose to amplify. We are taught to believe in the myth of the one-man genius, but the facts show James Brown was not alone. He was part of a collective of innovators like Dyke Christian, who was using the word funky before James was. He stood on the shoulders of the groove from the meters and the rhythm of Charles Wright, plus a whole lot of others. James Brown was great, but a lot of unnamed people contributed to his success through inspiration, white lies, or even a little thievery. The mainstream pushes a story until it becomes doctrine, but a true story always lies underneath. It is better to know the truth than to live under a lie. Now, I know some of y'all gonna be some haters, but you saw the facts. You can't run away from the facts. The thing is, like I said, James Brown is the king. He's the greatest at what he did. Ain't nobody touching that. But the thing is, he kind of developed what somebody else was already doing and took it to another level and had the right people putting the right money behind what he was doing. James Brown became the face. So I hope you appreciate that, guys, and don't throw too many bricks. Do your research and you'll see that what I'm saying is factual. And I hope you appreciate it on the channel, and I'll see you guys next time.